Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to this morning's Mental Health Engagement Recoveries webinar. This is the second in our series, and in these webinars, what we're trying to do is to that people may feel helpful to them at this time during the COVID pandemic situation. And my name is Michael Ryan, and I'm Head of Mental Health Engagement and Recovery nationally with the HSE. And the function of mental health engagement and recovery is to try and ensure that the experience of service users, family members, carers, supporters is captured to help inform the design, delivery and evaluation of mental health services. And you can find out more about mental health engagement and recovery by going to the HSC webpage on mental health engagement and recovery. If you just Google that, it will come up. And as I said, this is the second in our series of webinars, and our first one last week was hosted by the MHER Recovery College, and very grateful for them for their fine webinar, and congratulations to them for that. And this week our webinar is being hosted by Michael Norton and Pat Smyth, and Michael works on my own team nationally as an engagement and recovery lead, and Pat works in Community Healthcare West as a recovery coordinator. And they're going to talk about supporting your wellness at this time. And just a few household rules before we go. Not appear on the screen at any time, or anything to say will not be audible. You can ask questions through the Q&A function that's available through the webinar, and you'll be prompted during the webinar when to do this. The webinar lasts approximately 60 minutes, which I'm sure it is. So I'm going to hand you over now to Michael, who will introduce the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Michael Norton, and as Michael said, I'm one of the National Engagement and Recovery Leads within the Office of Mental Health Engagement and Recovery. And today we're going to be looking at a thing called wellness during COVID-19, or wellness during a global pandemic. And I suppose it is a really important module or little webinar to have, because we're all in this kind of level 5 crises at the minute, and we need to really kind of figure out what can we do for our wellness. What is wellness, first of all, and what can we do for our wellness during the pandemic? So we have a little bit of a PowerPoint slideshow for you, and what we'll be doing is we'll be kind of looking into different aspects of what is wellness, and then we've identified 8 key determinants of wellness, which Pat is going to go through, and then we're going to have a little look about how we can maintain our wellness. What can we do ourselves to maintain our wellness during COVID-19? And that's really important as well. So if Pat, if you want to bring up the PowerPoint presentation there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will indeed, Michael. I'll just introduce myself.
Yeah.
My name is Pat Smyth. I'm the Recovery Coordinator in Community Healthcare West. I'd like to thank Michael Ryan and the Office of Mental Health Engagement and Recovery for the opportunity to facilitate this morning with Michael. So without further ado, I am going to share a screen with you now. Okay, Michael?
Yeah, I can see it there now. So as I said before, this webinar is going to be about wellness during a global pandemic. And I suppose when we're talking about the global pandemic, there is a significant date that does come across whenever we do touch on this subject, and we'll be looking at the significant date and what I suppose what we thought would happen and what actually did happen. We'd then be looking at what do we mean by wellness. So what is wellness as a concept, and how is it important? As I said earlier as well, we'll be then looking at the 8 dimensions of wellness. So these are the different aspects of ourselves and our surroundings that can help us to maintain our wellness. And then we'll be looking into the real kind of practical bits about how do we maintain our wellness. And I suppose what really will come up here is the importance of that during our current climate. So what are when we're talking about a significant date, I think we will all remember where we were when we heard that COVID-19 came to Ireland on the 12th of March 2020. I remember being in my office at work, and someone came up to me and said, the shops are in mayhem. Everyone is going to the shops because there's a massive fear that we'll run out of food. We'll run out of all these different bits and bobs because COVID-19 had finally reached Ireland. But we thought of an awful lot of different things. So as I said, we thought about, people went to the shops and they went absolutely, they went and they got all the food in the shops, and because we all thought that we were going to run out of food. In actual fact, we didn't. We thought that the hospitals wouldn't be able to cope with what was going on. And thanks to our measures that we've taken place over the last 8 months, they have been able to cope. We thought that, when this virus came, we'd had this kind of visions of Armageddon, the end of the world was coming. And we thought that, oh Lord, what are we going to do because of this virus being here? And would our lives change forever? And the thing is, we're still here, and there has been a vaccine in development, and it's in advanced stages of development. And it hopefully will be rolled out next year. And the government has provided supports, and the government has stayed strong in this and provided supports along the way during this whole idea, during this COVID-19. We also thought to be mass unemployment. And I suppose for a time, there was mass unemployment. But we eventually managed to get back into our working routines, and we found a new way of working for a lot of us as well. A lot of us in the past would have traveled for meetings, and instead now all that was happening through Zoom. A lot of us would have traveled for college, to get college lectures and do exams, and a lot of that was found different ways of doing that virtually. A lot of us, some of us have been, lost their jobs in shops or in restaurants or in hotels for the last little while. But the thing is, we will bounce back out of this, and we will get out of this, because we've seen that during the summer when the cases were low, we were able to jump back out of this, and we were able to get some employment, get back some reality, some normality. And we also thought that we won't get through this, but look where we are. We're 8 months in. Yes, it has been extremely hard for a lot of people, but we are getting through this in the best way we can. And you can see real acts of community happening as well, which is really important for that. So when we look at the thoughts of what we thought would happen, it often lands in the sphere of catastrophizing. And when we talk about catastrophizing, we're talking about, we're thinking of the worst possible outcome. And that can often happen to us in day-to-day life as well. But in this context, when we're thinking about, oh, we're going to run out of food, we're not going to be able to cope, it's going to be the end of the world, we're going to have mass unemployment, you know, and we won't get through this. In actual fact, that's catastrophizing thinking. And it's just to try and step away from that, realize that that is catastrophizing, and kind of thinking, okay, so I know that I'm thinking that way now. How can I stop myself from doing that? And that will be all coming up later on as well when we're talking about maintaining our wellness during COVID-19. Next slide, if you want to bring it up, Pat. Yeah, thank you. Is what do we mean by wellness? And wellness is a massive, massive concept that means things. But I suppose in this context, we're thinking of wellness as an act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis. So, you know, exercise, you know, or mindfulness, or whatever that may be for you, whatever healthy habit that may be for you, to attain a better physical and health outcomes, so that instead of just surviving, you are thriving. So other kind of, when it comes into what do we mean by wellness, so there's one here that states that it is common to associate wellness with good physical health in the absence of mental distress. And that's what we're brought up to believe when we go through school and when we learn about you know, medicine and all that kind of stuff. We learn that wellness is about living, having good physical health and having no mental distress. We come along and talk about recovery. You know, sometimes in our definition of recovery, it's about living the best life you can, even in the presence of mental health challenges. So it kind of, our definition of wellness kind of is a little bit different because of that. But I suppose, we are going to look at wellness as an eightfold concept and propose that we can improve wellness despite the presence of an illness. So that kind of links into that real kind of recovery talk that we've been talking about earlier. Because in addition to our emotional wellness, there are 6 other dimensions that we can focus on. And it's showing that wellness is more than just the absence of disease or the promotion of good physical health. It's about your whole well-being, that everything that is involved, it supports your whole. And remember that a complete wellness may not mean zero stress, but it may mean that we have healthier ways to cope. And that's really important as well. And I suppose we are going to go and do the dimensions of wellness, which Pat is kindly going to do. And just before Pat does that, we have a question in, and it was asking if we could send on point, and I'm sure we can do that after this this presentation as well. We can send this out on a generic email to everyone, so I'm sure there'll be no problem. Go ahead, Pat.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Can you hear me, everybody? Michael?
Yes, we can hear you, Pat. Go ahead.
Okay, as we had alluded to already, that physical and emotional wellness are 2 of the dimensions of wellness. But in researching this webinar, most of the information that we looked at provided 7 or 8 different dimensions of wellness. And we chose the 8 dimensions of wellness because we thought it gave a very, very good picture of what a complete or a thriving life would be. So we're going to start with the I seem to be frozen here now. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, Pat, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty with.
That's okay.
Yeah,
you need
sorry.
to select.
I had obviously a broadband issue there. So the 8 dimensions of wellness, we will just go through them first and then we'll deal with them individually. So we're going to do them in this order. We're going to look at emotional wellness. We're going to look at environmental wellness, social wellness, and intellectual. And when we have those first 4 covered, we will take some questions if there are questions arising. Following from that, we will look at physical wellness, occupational wellness, financial wellness, and the most personal one we leave to the last, which is spiritual wellness. So when we talk about emotional wellness, it is probably the one that concerns us the most. And in terms of emotional wellness, one of the things that you hear a lot about nowadays is resilience. And you will often hear people being critical of a younger generation, saying that they lack resilience. And the truth is that when we speak about resilience, there are 2 things that we need to look at here. First thing is to define what actually is resilience, and then to tackle this whole issue of the phrase, you need to build resilience, which is a phrase that sometimes I find slightly patronizing, because people tell you to build resilience, but they don't tell you how to go about it. So what is resilience? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to remain calm in the face of adversity, while others seem to fall apart? People who can keep calm in the face of adversity, psychologists would say that these people have resilience. Instead of falling into despair or hiding from their problems with unhealthy coping strategies, resilient people face their adversity head on. This doesn't mean that they experience less stress than the rest of us, or less grief or less anxiety. It just means that they handle those situations differently. So fortunately, resilience is something that we can build into our lives. And here are some of the steps that we can use to build resilience. The first one is to reframe our thoughts, that we should look for the positives in a negative situation. Now, if we cast our minds back to the 12th of March and the scenes that we saw on our TV screens, it was easy to focus on the negatives in a situation like that. So what we would recommend for all of us in reframing our thoughts is to focus on small ways that we can look after ourselves in a difficult situation. If we can't change the world, we can change our own situation by taking small steps. Second thing is, in terms of building your resilience, is to seek support. Talking things through with someone else or having someone to share your fears with can be extremely helpful. And the final thing is, rather than focusing on what you can't control, focus on what you can control within your own environment. The next area of wellness is the area of environmental wellness. And often our environment has a major influence on how our general wellness will be. Spending time outdoors is an essential part of environmental wellness. Not only if you go for a walk do you boost your vitamin D, but you get fresh air and it has a strong impact on your overall wellness. Often within your home environment, simple measures within your home environment can improve your environmental wellness. I know of a lady that in the lockdown lived in an apartment in Dublin, and she had a very, very small balcony. And she decided that as she couldn't go out because she was one of these people that was cocooning, that one of the things that she bought for herself was a bird feeder. And she found that the very act of sitting out and watching the birds come to the feeder improved her environmental wellness. So that was a very, very small step, but it made a difference to her life during the course of the lockdown. The third dimension of wellness is social wellness. I think it's safe to say that from the time that we are born, the relationships that we make help us navigate our way through life. And sometimes we forget the importance of relationships and community and their role within our lives. So strategies for improving our social wellness means making connections. If we don't attempt to make connections in our lives, we can be left in isolation. So there, even by what we're doing today, connecting over Zoom for something like this, there is an element of connectedness there. Even if you're not actively participating, you're listening and you are aware that there is a group here other than yourself. Be open to learning something new, participate if you can, or volunteer within your own community. I think something that can be overlooked as well is that often if you're taking care of someone else in the role of a carer, that we forget at those times that we also need to look after ourselves. So ask for help. Don't drop your own hobbies or interests, or join a caregiver support group. In building healthy relationships, sometimes we have to learn how to compromise. And compromise is not capitulation. Compromise is an agreement that works for each party. The other thing in building healthy relationships is to set boundaries, that it's important to protect yourself from people who might take advantage. And an aspect of social wellness that sometimes we can overlook is the bonds that you create with children, whether it's your own children, your grandchildren, your nieces or nephews. Often, in terms of social wellness, the bonds that we create with children and young people can have a major impact on our social wellness. And the fourth component that we're going to look at is the whole area of intellectual wellness. And intellectual wellness refers to the active participation in education, cultural, or community activity. It's important to maintain intellectual wellness because it expands our knowledge and skills in order to live a stimulating life. Intellectual wellness is a powerful tool to guard against boredom, which can often develop into negative thought patterns. Our intellectual wellness can help us to break the cycle of anxiety through diversion. Measures that we can take to increase our intellectual wellness include joining a library, reading for fun, learning a foreign language, learning a new skill, learning how to play an instrument, using the internet as a resource for learning, and writing, even by writing down your thoughts or journaling frequently. So far we've looked at emotional wellness, environmental wellness, social wellness, and intellectual wellness. Now, the pattern that we would like people to take away from today is it all harks back to there are 8 components of wellness. So we've looked at 4 of them. And after we look at questions, we will move to the next 4 of the 8 components. Have we any questions?
So just for anyone that wants to ask some questions, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if you want to just type in any questions you may have, we'll answer them the best we can. We're after getting one there out. So Patrick, this is just a question for yourself. It says, hi Patrick, is there any reason as to why mental wellness is not included?
Yeah, when we speak about mental wellness, we include it under emotional wellness, and we deliberately stuck with the emotional wellness and with the resilience part, because any of us that have struggled with our mental health over the years, we know that probably the thing that distracts us the most when we're unwell is our mental wellness. Often it's the only thing that features in our lives and that we focus on. And deliberately, it has been downplayed to emphasize that your emotional wellness doesn't work in isolation, that there are 7 other factors alongside it. So I hope that answers it to an extent. I don't want to trivialize it, but I didn't want to give it overall precedence within the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And Pat, we have another question, if that's all right, before we move on. And it says, greeting Pat and Michael. If you both had to pick one determinant of wellness to focus on during COVID-19, what would that be? So I might answer that first, Pat, if that's all right. For me, I think if I was to pick one that I would work on during COVID-19, it would be my emotional wellness. It's something that I suppose Pat, the previous questioner and Pat has alluded to, that mental health is within emotional. And I found that during COVID-19, my mental and emotional well-being really started to go a bit downhill, because I thrived on being social with people. I thrived with being around people, talking to people, doing the things I enjoy doing. And you'll later come up with Chime and how that is important for our wellness as well. But really, if I was to focus on one more closely, and it's one that I have been focusing more so with COVID-19 and more mindful of because of COVID-19, it would be my emotional wellness. What about you, Pat?
You know, I've given this a lot of thought, and I think that we generally, I know myself, I take my wellness for granted. When I am well, I actually take it for granted a lot of the time. When I would look at the list there and examine my own situation, I'd say that if you put yourself at the center of the wheel and imagine the cogs of the wheel go out to the 8 dimensions of wellness, at any one time, there is probably a couple of the dimensions that, for want of a better word, are in good health with all of us. And there are areas that all of us can neglect. I would say that if I was going to pick one that I should focus on more and that I neglect at the moment, is my physical wellness. When I say physical wellness, I mean kind of active physical wellness, because I am capable at the moment of going for a long walk. I find that if I neglect my physical wellness, the first thing that suffers then is my emotional wellness. A lot of the other ones there, some of them, there is no one at any point in their life that will have the 8 components sorted. We're always moving towards improving or picking up on something that we had dropped at a particular point. So I'd say for me, the physical wellness is something that I need to work on, and it follows from that my emotional wellness would improve as a result of it. Any other questions, Michael?
No, that's it for now,
Great.
Patrick. But if anyone has any other questions they'd like to ask, please throw them into the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer them as best we can closer to the end.
Okay, we'll move on now to the next 4 of the components or dimensions of wellness. I just spoken there briefly about physical wellness. The benefits of being active, we all know them. I mean, studies have shown that a sedentary lifestyle, i.e. sitting or lying down for long periods every day, can actually cause a wide range of physical and medical problems. Even if you're not active, one thing that we need to do is we need to maintain our bodies. I have a family member at the moment who is just recovering from a hip replacement, and they had put this off for literally years, and already they are making plans for all the things that they're going to do. So our bodies often tell us, we don't need the doctor to tell us there's a problem. Our bodies tell us before we get to the doctor in a lot of cases. And maintaining our physical wellness is going to be intrinsically linked to our emotional wellness. One of the issues for most of us, particularly myself now at the moment, moving into my early 60s, is that I need to focus on my physical wellness. And one area that I need to focus on is maintaining your weight. If you don't maintain your weight, it leads to a range of other problems. I think rather than say to people, this is all the things that you're doing wrong, what I would say is the important part of physical wellness is to build healthy habits. Cut down or cut out certain things. Cut down on alcohol, cut down on tobacco products. If you can, cut them out, but obviously cut down. Develop a healthy sleep regime. And the final thing, which we're going to tell you to do this now, is your hours screen time you're in it at the moment for today. Cut down on your screen time. So the next area we will move to now is occupational wellness. And occupational wellness, or sometimes called vocational wellness, is making use of the gifts, skills, and talents that you have in order to gain purpose and fulfillment. So we're not saying to people that you must have a paid employment. Many of us don't want full-time paid employment, but in terms of occupational wellness, it's important that we use the gifts and skills that we have. Tips for improving occupational wellness include always striving towards increasing our knowledge and skills, identifying the positives and the benefits of your current role if you are employed, because employment brings its own challenges. The old phrase of finding something that you're good at and that you enjoy means that you'll never work a day again. It doesn't always happen for everybody. Sometimes the act of work can be a chore in itself, but it's to try and find the positives in it. And establishing a work-life balance is extremely important, and working towards our future goals in small steps would be a tip for occupational wellness. Moving towards financial wellness, while we all know that money doesn't buy happiness, we also know that struggling to make ends meet or having debt issues can have a major impact on our wellness. This is an area that I would have considerable experience in from both sides of the fence. I know what it's like to struggle financially, but I also worked for MABS as a money advisor many years ago. And I learned and I taught people the tips for financial wellness. And one of the key aspects of that I would say for financial wellness is, if you don't budget, learn how to budget. Budgeting is a matter of making a simple plan and sticking to it. If you don't save, create a savings account. People would often say, it's impossible for me to save. If I said to someone, well, listen, could you save €4 a week? I think all of us will be capable of doing that. Save with the credit union, because it's often the people with the lowest form of, or with the lowest income, that pay most dearly for credit. The cheapest form of credit that is open to people is the credit union. So I'd say save and source appropriate credit. Learn how to cook. If you learn how to cook, you will improve your budgeting skills overnight. I often find that people that don't learn how to cook or say that they can't cook, they probably have a much larger food bill than people who can cook. The Money Advice and Budgeting Service give free resources. You can go into one of their offices and they will give you information on budgeting, information on savings, information on credit. They'll even give you a free cookbook. And the Money Advice and Budgeting Service cookbook is an extremely useful document. The final thing is that if you're in financial trouble, the starting point is go to the Money Advice and Budgeting Service, and you will receive free, impartial, non-judgment support there, and it can be the first steps to dealing with debt issues, ISMABs, and it does work, and it does take stress and pressure off people. Finally, we're going to move to spiritual wellness. I left this to the very end because I think spiritual wellness is something that is the most personal piece that we're going to talk about today. What's the difference between spiritual wellness and religion? People often ask what that difference is, and I would say that religion is a specific set of organized beliefs and practices. So religion is usually organized. It's often in a shared community or group. But spirituality is a much more individual piece. And it really relates to how you look at the world and how you make sense of your place in the world. Can I be spiritual without being religious? I can. Can I be religious without being spiritual? Yes, I can. Can I be both? Yes, I can. So, in terms of spiritual wellness, the tips for spiritual wellness, and some of these would be linked to religious practice. Some of them don't have to be linked to religious practice. But in terms of your spiritual wellness, the tips are develop a belief in giving rather than expecting. I think that if you give something without expecting something in return, the person who gains the most from that is the giver. Forgive and let go of grudges or hurt. The person who bears a grudge is the person who hurts the most. Try and calm your mind, because when we calm our mind through something like meditation, there is scientific evidence based now that you can relieve anxiety if you practice meditation on a daily basis. Try and recognize when you're in a spiral of negative thought. And if you get into that spiral, the quickest route out of it is some form of distraction. And the final thing is, if we want to explore our true selves, there's 3 simple questions. Close your eyes and ask yourself, who am I? What is my purpose? And what do I value most? So that is the 8 components of wellness. I'll now hand you back to Michael, and we will take questions at the end.
I was on mute there, apologies. Thanks so much, Pat, for that. And it really shows how wellness is, it has many different layers to it. It's not just your plain, look at wellness. There's many different factors that actually impact on wellness as well. And that's really, really important to know about, to be mindful of when you're thinking about what actually makes me well, you know, and what does wellness look like to me. That's really important as well. So next slide there, Pat, whenever you're ready.
I'm afraid I'm frozen here, Michael, now.
No worries. So I suppose while Pash is doing that, if you have any questions, please fire them in. And thanks for the people that are saying many thanks for this. This has definitely been helpful for me and my own idea of wellness, but also it has been helpful for other people as well. So thank you for all your comments coming in so far. I suppose when we're looking at wellness, you know, there are when it comes to wellness in terms of mental health, I like to use two specific tools to support me in my wellness, and they are Chime, which we'll go into, and the RAP program. So really, there's a phrase that I've heard that's originated from a good friend of mine who works in the Kilkenny services as well. And she always uses this phrase when it comes to, you know, looking at your practice as a practitioner, and whether you're doing it in a recovery oriented way. And I have tweaked it for this particular set. And what that is, have I chimed today? And it's looking at Chime. And what it is Chime is an acronym that was developed from a big study that was done by Mary Leamy and colleagues in 2011. And they looked at what were the key ingredients for recovery. And what came out of it were connectedness, hope, identity, meaning and purpose, and empowerment. And these were important for wellness. And I'm kind of switching this around again and using basically it towards my own wellness, because I find that Chime is so important for my wellness, and making sure and they kind of link to the 8 dimensions of wellness, some of the parts of the 8 dimensions of wellness as well. So if we look at the first one, C, connectiveness. So when it comes to my wellness, did I connect with other people today? Did I connect to myself? And that relates to the spirituality side of the 8 dimensions. Have I connected to myself today? You know, also in terms of have I other people, links to the social aspects or the social dimension of our wellness. And really, it's all about, have I connected with people? Have I connected with myself? And is that and the importance of that for my wellness. The next one is hope and optimism. So we look at in recovery, we look at hope and optimism of being very, very important for wellness, or being very important for recovery. And it's the same when it comes to wellness. You know, have I hope that my future is good? Have I hope for today? Is there something that happened today or something that I did today that makes me more hopeful in myself? And it links to the emotional dimension of wellness, because the emotional dimension of wellness really clicks in with the mental health sphere as such. The next one is identity. And I know for my own wellness, I need to have a specific identity. I need to know who I am. You know, I am a brother, I am a son, I am a sister, I am a husband, I am a wife. Those basic identities, but I am a national engagement and recovery lead. I am a person of value. You know, who do you identify as? And that's really important in promoting your emotional well-being as well, because it gives you that identity, it gives you that sense of who I am as a person. And that's really, really important. We then go to meaning in life. And meaning in life is about what is that thing that gets me up in the morning? What is that thing that will help me to actually get up and do and go through my day? Do I have a specific meaning to my life? And how does it relate to my wellness? Is it a case that when I lose meaning in my life, my aspects of my wellness go down the drain as well? And it's really trying to connect those dots for yourself, which is really important also. The final one is empowerment. And empowerment is all about, getting up and sticking up for yourself and doing things for yourself and feeling like you can do things for yourself. And it's like what Pat was talking about. It's kind of like walking, and really kind of making sure that you do walk for yourself today. And maybe that walk will empower you to do other things. And it's really, really valuable. And when you connect the 5 of these together, they form this thing called Chime. And it's really about, all these things. If I have all these things in my life, chances are my wellness is fairly good too. It can be hard to have all these aspects due to the current climate we're in, but that's where we become creative in the way we get these. So, for instance, connectiveness is very hard to be connected to other people right now, but you are here today at this webinar. You are connecting to us as the facilitators of this webinar. That's a way of being connected to something today. It's very hard to have hope at the minute, but I suppose we're looking at we're looking at it, and we're hearing about vaccine coming next year. We're seeing that Christmas is near. We're seeing that hopefully we'll have time to spend with our families this year. All that kind of stuff, and that gives me that sense of hope. That we're in this dark place right now because we're in level 5 restrictions with COVID-19 and so on. But I do have hope that things will get better because there's going to be a vaccine, and that's how you can really apply Chime, not only for mental health, but to your day-to-day life as well. And that's why it's really important to say to yourself, and apologies to that I stole this kind of phrase from, but I found it was a really, really good phrase. And it's really about thinking to yourself after each day, did I chime today? Have I chimed today? And what aspects have I chimed today? The next aspect, I suppose, we've discussed an awful lot about Chime, the 8 dimensions of wellness, and what wellness has been. And I suppose the next aspect of what I find really useful in maintaining my wellness is a thing called WRAP. And WRAP stands for Wellness Recovery Action Planning. And it was developed by this lady here in front of us, Mary Ellen Copeland, in America. And it's really good because WRAP is a reflective tool where you get to learn about what makes me well, what helps me to maintain my wellness, but also what are the things that might cause me to be a bit uneasy in my wellness or get completely unwell. And WRAP can be applied, even though WRAP is really much within the mental health sphere, it can be applied to any aspect of a person's life. For instance, COVID-19 has caused an awful lot of problems. For instance, one way that I ensure my wellness is that I travel a lot and I see the world, and I take that time away from things. Unfortunately, this year with COVID, I can't do that. So I've developed new ways of actually getting that escapism that I get from holidays in that part. And that new way is actually by looking at, reading books, playing video games, all that kind of stuff. WRAP is really, really useful, and it goes through a whole load of different aspects of wellness and unwellness. And if anyone's really interested in taking this up and really looking at it, I would recommend you going to the recovery colleges, your local recovery college. And that information can be found on the Mental Health Engagement and Recovery website. And it's really useful because deliver this RAP program, and it's I tell you, it's really useful for one's own for anyone's wellness. Going very briefly, because I'm very conscious of time, very briefly, RAP has a couple of elements to it. We first talk about the key concepts of RAP, which are hope, personal responsibility, self-advocacy, education, and support. And these are the foundations of RAP. We then look at a wellness toolbox, and this is where you put in the things that you use, that you can use when you're starting to feel a bit unwell, and you can use these to kind of help you with your wellness. So for instance, at the minute, because, as I said before, because I can't travel, and travel would normally be in my wellness toolbox, I have books in my wellness toolbox, so that I can actually say, okay, I can escape to something now. And then you look at, what am I like when I'm well? So what am I like when I'm actually well? What does wellness look like to me? What am I like when I'm well? And what do other people see in me? You then go into daily maintenance planning. So what you need to do every day, every week, and every month to keep yourself well. We then look at stressors and action planning. And stressors are kind of things from the outside world. For instance, COVID-19, that can cause you to feel a bit unwell in yourself. And what kind of things can you do to make sure that you stay well in those times? Look at early warning signs, and they're internal things. They're the internal feelings you may have as a result of the stressor. And how do I deal with them? So the stressors and early warning signs kind of work in tandem with one another. When things are breaking down, then is when you feel a little bit worse, and you're kind of thinking, what can I do? And an action plan for that. You then look at crisis planning, and originally crisis planning would have been about, mental health and what happens there. But think about it. If you think about it logically and more openly, we all face life crises at some stage in time, and it's kind of like, when we're in a crisis, no matter what it is, we feel confused, we feel unsure, we don't know what's going on, we feel all over the shop. And that can happen to our physical wellness, it could happen to our spiritual wellness, it could happen to any part of our wellness that we've discussed earlier. And what you can do then is set a plan about how you can actually make sure, how you can actually get yourself back to a place of wellness. And post-crisis plan then is really useful in getting that across as well. How do you come from a place of crisis back to a place of wellness? So if anyone's really interested in learning more about RAP or about CHIME, please do email us in the Mental Health Engagement and Recovery Office, or contact your local recovery college, and they will be able to give you the most the information for the next trainings that are on. So I believe that's it, Pat. Oh, and just to show you examples of my wellness as well. As I said before, these are pictures of different aspects of my wellness and what and different aspects of things I do every day for my wellness. So as you can see on the far left, that's me in San Diego, California, on holidays. And as I said, travel is a big part for me in my own wellness and maintaining my wellness. To the second photo from the is my dog Nico, and he makes sure that I have physical wellness as well as emotional wellness, because he wants to walk, he wants to, and as you can see there, he wants to he wants to go to different places and have a walk and enjoy life to the fullest. So that's really, really important. And really my wellness kind of surrounds him as well. You next see the third picture is, I like painting. I like actually being creative and doing things, artistic things, and that's where that comes in as well. I love my paintings, and that's one example of how I maintain my wellness. And especially during COVID-19, there's not a hell of a lot I can do. So what can I do? I can paint. I can be creative. I can occupy my time that way. And then the last thing then is a degree. And basically, that forms part, if we go back to the Chime model, that forms part of my identity, you know, that I am actually someone who is, I'm a healthcare practitioner. I'm qualified to be a healthcare practitioner. And that's really important for my sense of identity, which in turn is really important for my sense of wellness, because I feel like I have a place in the world. I hope that has been helpful. We have a couple of Q&As. I know we're just at 12 o'clock, but just to read out some of the questions that we have, we might not be able to answer them right now, but we will, of course, come back with anything else later to time. So the first question was, just want to say this is very good, really finding this beneficial, going through rough times, and I need something like this. Glad we could help in that. Would love a slideshow copy. My question to you both, how does RAP fit in with the 8 dimensions? And I hope I've explained that through my own discussions of RAP and how it, and Chime and how it links in. And then there's another person saying that they have to log off now, but they found this really helpful and would love a copy of the slides. And of course, we will, if you want a copy of the slides, please just email us in the Mental Health Engagement and Recovery office, and we'll do our best to send them out to you. Thrilled to see you including RAP, Michael. It's a fantastic program. Michael and Patrick, great presentation, well delivered. My question is, where do you start if you want to make changes? And it's, when you want to make changes, it's a very slow thing. And it's just take one thing at a time, take one change at a time, and work from there. And someone loves the dog that I just put up as well. So thanks everyone for your questions and your remarks. I hope you found this beneficial in some way. I'd like to pass you over now again to Michael Ryan, who's the head of Mental Health Engagement and Recovery, who would like to close off this session. Michael.
Thanks, Michael and Pat. That was a fantastic webinar. There was an awful lot of detail there, and you know, some really helpful hints and information. And certainly, I could identify with a lot of the things you talked about. You know, to maintain my own wellness, and actually during the pandemic. It allowed me to look at my life and to put some more discipline into it, and to put into place some of the things that you are talking about: more regular exercise, better sleep, looking at, you know, what I eat and when I eat, and also what I find very helpful is being able to have, you know, somebody to talk to about. It really is true for me. You know, a problem shared is a problem halved, and just to I find that very helpful, just to have someone to a close-mouthed friend to talk to things about. So I hope that everybody found that webinar helpful, where it is recorded, and you can access it again by going on to the Mental Health Engagement and Recovery YouTube channel, and you'll also find last week's one there. I'd also just like to let you know about the next in the series, which is not on next Thursday, but on next Friday. We have a national mental health engagement forum conference. So part of our structure locally around the country is that we have a number of forums where people who are interested in mental health and how it's delivered by the service can come together and talk. So we will be having a conference to hear what's been going on with those forums, what are the issues, and how you can become involved. So if you'd like to join in with that, it's next Friday on December 4th. It's from 11 to 2:15, and you'd be very welcome to come along to that. As Michael said, if you have any questions relating to today, or indeed anything involving mental health engagement and recovery, you can email mhengage@hse.ie. That's mhengage@hse.ie, and we will do our best to answer your questions. So when you will leave the webinar today, automatically you will be directed to an evaluation page, just to give you an opportunity to share how you found the webinar, what the experience was like for you. And there's also an opportunity there for you to suggest other topics you would like us to cover in a future webinar. And that's very important that we're hearing what you'd like, so we can try and put on what you need. So I think that's everything for today. I'd like to thank Pat and Michael sincerely for the excellent webinar. And these things just don't happen overnight. There's time putting them together, and there's a backroom team as well. So I'd like to thank them. And I hope you all have a good week, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon at maybe our next webinar. Thank you.